We are the free bride of Christ. All other Christians are this old, stodgy wife who God doesn't really like. And it was this comparison of the woman being the old Christian church was like this conservative woman who doesn't give her man sex anymore. And we are the young, vibrant, special woman that God loves more because we give him the sex, essentially.
Trigger warning, this podcast contains mature themes and discussions of cults, manipulation, and trauma. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Cultimatum, the culture of cults and human trafficking, where we expose the dark side of control, manipulation, and the human stories behind them. I'm Anonymous Andrew, executive producer and investigator into cult dynamics and coercive control.
And I'm Melody, a cult survivor and advocate for awareness and healing.
This is Cultimatum. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Cultimatum Podcast, a culture of cults and human trafficking. And my name is Anonymous Andrew, and with me tonight is my co-host, Melody. Hello, Melody. And who do we have on the show tonight?
Hello, Andrew. Today we're joined by Cheryl Stevens, who shares online about growing up in the Children of God cult. Cheryl describes her childhood there as not bad enough. And it wasn't until adulthood that she actually began questioning and deconstructing the beliefs that she was raised with. After leaving the group, she was recruited into a band by a former member of the same cult, where similar high control dynamics were repeated in an even more intense and damaging way. After finally escaping, Cheryl began a journey of psychological and spiritual healing. She hopes her story will help cult survivors and those recovering from narcissistic abuse. Cheryl, welcome to Cultimatum.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, welcome, Cheryl. And there's a little story about Cheryl leaving her first cult that I can't wait to hear about the second part. So I
Yes.
can't wait.
So where to begin? Just from birth?
Yeah. Were you born in? I'm assuming if you're saying
born
birth,
in,
that you
yeah,
were
let's
born
go
in.
with birth.
Yes, I was born into this, what I understood in my upbringing. It was we were the chosen ones, right? Of course, that's what they tell you when you're in it. The way that I remember the story being told to me was like these were people who had dropped out of a corrupt system and were trying to change the world for the better and with a Christian message, sort of bring Jesus to the world and be the chosen ones, right? The disciples. So everything was built around this concept of Christian discipleship, following Jesus. There was like all the other churches are bad. We are the good ones because, and the Children of God specifically had this very strong sexual freedom thing. And it was all about the messaging that I got was, okay, we are the free bride of Christ. All other Christians are this old, stodgy wife who God doesn't really like, and it was this comparison of the woman being the old Christian church was like this conservative woman who doesn't give her man sex anymore. And we are the young, vibrant, special woman that God loves more because we give him the sex, essentially. So this was messaging that was given to us from very, very young. And everything was sexualized. Our education was sexualized. Our environment was sexualized. And as children, we were aware of that all the adults were this free love community. And I think the earliest effect that I remember having was feeling very insecure because I knew that my parents were, not essentially physically faithful to each other in that sense, and that anybody could be with anybody. And I grew up with a very that world isn't safe. Just a very you don't know anybody could have access to you. And I know a lot of my peers were abused at incredibly young ages and many times, but I wasn't, or at least that I can remember. I know there have been a lot of stories that I've read since then that people just completely blocked out the memory, and I've looked for them because I know there was a lot of psychological abuse that I still am recovering from. But I don't have a memory of actually being sexually abused. So, I mean, in that case, if my memory is correct, then I'm very glad.
Yeah, count your blessings.
I do. I definitely do.
Let me ask you, when you say that your parents were not faithful, but was that encouraged by the cult or the
Yes, it was encouraged, it was even required.
it was required? Okay.
Yes.
Did they because I know that back in the 70s, and because we've had Children of God episodes before, that they used to one of their teachings is actually called flirty fishing. Was that
Mm.
flirty fishing teaching, did that continue on as far as you know, or did you know about that? Was that something that, because I thought they had kind of tried to clean up their reputation a little bit at some point because of some accusations and stuff.
That's correct. I did know about the flirty fishing, but as far as I understood, it had sort of subsided or just kind of been switched out by the time the 80s, like in mid 80s. So as a child, I had a complex about my siblings would tease me about being from the French mailman because I was born in France and they were practicing flirty fishing at the time. And me being born at that time, it was like, oh, who's her father? Nobody knows. So I remember having a lot of insecurities about like, "Oh, is my dad even my dad?" Da da da. I mean, as I grew up, my likeness is very much like him, so I didn't even need to do a DNA test. I started being very visible that I'm like, "Okay, I am my father's daughter," and that was another thing I was like, "Oh, I count my blessings." Um, but I know it was a very common thing, and Jesus babies is what they called them, that women just had children from this practice of flirty fishing, which was, I mean, for the listener, maybe you've had people explain it before, but essentially the practice was sending the women out into the town, kind of like prostitution, but essentially just to go and flirt with men, bring them home and have sex with them, and then convert them to our religion.
And just to clarify on our previous episode, sometimes the men had to do it too. So it wasn't
Right.
just the women, it was just teaching across the board kind of.
Right. Yes. I mean, I
But
definitely heard more about the women, and it was like all the literature was focused on women. There was these images of like a fishing hook with going through a woman's body like this, and she's
like
this
bait.
sexy woman being the bait.
Let's dive a little deeper into that. So if I don't know if you did that, but let's say they did send these women out into town, and I do remember somebody else talking about this, but I don't remember if I asked this question. So you go into town and you find some guy, and I don't know if you go to bars or you go to cafes, coffee shops, whatever, and you find a guy that says, I don't know how you approach him. Do you say, "Hey, would you like to go home and sleep with me?" I don't know if it's that direct. And if he says yes, and you go home and do that, what makes you think that he's going to convert?
Well, honestly, I don't know because it wasn't really in my time. Like this was more in the time of like in the 80s, and I was born in 83.
Oh,
So
so they don't practice this anymore.
no, I think they phased it out around that time, 83, 85,
Okay.
86.
What I remember from the last episode, Andrew, which was the Gross family, if you remember the six
Right.
siblings that
Yep.
came on,
Yep.
is that they were saying that they would do that and they didn't even necessarily need to be fully converted as long as they were getting money and donating to the church.
Uh, the money aspect,
And so
sure.
and sometimes they would find rich people or rich men or rich women purposely and then just keep going back to that same person and getting money for the sex, essentially prostitution, but
Right.
that
Mhm.
all the money went to the
Okay.
church.
So in my life or lived experience, these things were like stories that I heard about. I knew about the concept. I read the literature, but it wasn't a practice that we were doing in my time. So that kind of fed also into the like that there were things that we used to do, we being the children of God used to do that we don't do anymore. And that also that fed into when I would hear stories of child molestation or abuse in that way, that it was kind of lumped in with that. Like all these weird sexual things in my world, they were like, this is something that used to happen and doesn't happen anymore. So I grew up kind of thinking that we were a legit missionary organization, right? That this was like a
Right.
real Christian thing. And my experience, we were like mission field people. My dad was very like active with evangelizing or whatever you want to call it. Witnessing was the thing. So we moved to India when I was 5. We had a couple of years there, which I didn't love at all at that time because before that we had been I think it had just been our family and one or two others that like in a small community. And when we moved to India, it was this big community. And then all of a sudden I didn't see my parents anymore very often. And it was just like, that was sort of like my first memory of like separation and like this whole world changing and all this activity. Like I was in this group with a bunch of other kids and, we'd slept in this big room with teachers who, I mean, the first group I was in, the teachers slept in a little room separate, like adjacent to us. But I had a really hard time sleeping because, I was separated from my parents. So being 5 years old, I was really scared. I remember like crawling through the house and looking for my parents. And at nighttime, I would wait till everybody in my room was asleep. And then I was like, I have to find out where my parents are. So then I would just like go outside and go up the stairs and like hope that nobody else was awake. And then I found my parents who slept in the room with the older children. So picture a bedroom with like 20 beds, like trundle beds in layers across where all the kids are sleeping. And on the opposite side of the room, my parents' bed was. So I like crawled over all the older children being 5 years old, and I went and slept at the foot of my parents' bed like a little bug. Like, just at the foot, because I didn't wanna wake them up because I didn't know if they were gonna be upset at me for not being in my place that I was supposed to be in, but I had to be close to my parents. So I just went to sleep there, and then I would, like, wake up before the sun, like, just right where the first light was, and I'd quickly go back and pretend like I'd been in my bed just so that I wouldn't get in trouble, but at least that was the only way I could sleep during the little while.
That in itself is a little bit, I mean, maybe quite a bit psychologically traumatizing. I mean, you think about it, most kids don't have to think about where their parents are at night or worry about that. That's just something that naturally their parents are in the next room.
And she's in a new country too, and
Yeah.
India can be a tough place to live, depending where you go. Oh, I
Depending
don't.
where you go,
Yeah,
yeah, and it's a lot of so there's a strong caste system, right? So you have very, very, like, wealthy people, and then you have incredibly impoverished people.
and where were you? Where were you
Well,
housed?
we were actually housed between the 2 extremes.
Of
So,
course.
literally,
Okay.
our next door neighbor on one side was this huge white mansion who had servants and everything like that, and on the other side of our house, which was a massive commune, so I think it had initially been built as somebody's, like, big big house, but I don't know how many people there were, like 80 to 100 people in this house. And then on the other side, there was, like, very impoverished people that were, like, baking their food over fires outside. But we had a maid who did our laundry. I don't know why, but we did. I
Hmm.
just remember that. And, like, there were some random things, like, I remember one time finding a cockroach in my salad at lunchtime,
Oh,
like a
what
big
a
one like this.
shock! What?
I was like, "Oh." Um, and
Wow.
yeah, it was just, it was a whole interesting thing. Also, like, I had only been in France until then, so that was my first time seeing people with a different skin color. And I've been in India couple times afterwards, and, of course, now there's no, like there's no difference between colors of skin, but when I went there the first time and people were so dark like, I could think it was also the massive crowd of people in one place, and they all looked so different, and I was so overwhelmed, and I think I'm naturally I don't know now, I'm confused whether I'm introverted or extroverted because, the 16 personalities thing, it's been different every time, but I could think that's good because I'm evolving. But I've always identified as an introvert. I guess as a performer, I I know how to be extroverted and I can be extroverted and really in the moment with people, but I prefer to be alone. Like, I really love my alone time and just like my space, especially now that I can. Yeah, that's
Okay, so
being
what
alone is
happened
amazing.
after the 5 years in India? Where was your next stop?
Yeah, it was about 2 years that we were in India.
Okay.
It was interesting. I had a conversation with my family about how that whole time ended because I didn't really know some of the details, but there had been some kind of police report about the group and a police raid, and I think most everybody just kinda skipped and left, and there was our family who had to kind of deal with the police, and my 2 older siblings, they were actually being held. They were, like, 11 and 12 years old, being held by the police and being interrogated to give the names of all the foreigners who were in the group, and they actually, like, we didn't know anybody's real names because everybody had Bible names, right? It was Uncle Jebediah and Auntie Faithy and, like, all these names that they just, like, they wrote the list, but it didn't mean anything to them.
Do you know why the police raided the compound? Could it have
Anyways,
been maybe there were reports of sex abuse, or sounds criminal on
it could
nature.
have been it could have been. It could have been that. It could have also just been, like, they didn't want a whole commune of hippie Christians there. Yeah, there was some
They wanted you
sketchy.
out.
They wanted us out.
Yeah,
And,
it comes
like,
down to that.
yeah, it came down to that point.
It felt a little culty.
Yeah, I mean, what are you gonna say? It is what it is. So, yeah, anyways, we left there, we went to Bangladesh for a little bit, but then after a year and a half, we went to Belgium. Then we were in Belgium for a few years, and there as well, we also lived in a huge commune. It had, like, a beautiful garden. I remember really liking that place because the garden was massive. We had, like, a pond in the middle, and there was a tennis court on one side and a big meadow in the middle on the right side, and then we'd have our outdoor activities. So there was a lot of space to be in that house, and we started actually having some kind of school. There was a little bit more organized scholastics. Also, maybe I was 6 years old then, so we had a little bit of group education. We had these super workbooks that we were studying in.
So
There
let's go ahead and
Yeah,
jump ahead, Cheryl, because I know you have kind of a little bit of a double cult story here. So
true, true,
so
yes.
let's get to the point of when and how and why you left the children of
Let's do
God.
that. I
Was
like
that
this.
your whole family or just you or
Well, my family, everybody left in their own ways at different times, and I was actually one of the last to leave because we had been for 10 years in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine, and had been doing, like, actual humanitarian projects and things, and we were a little bit more, like, independent. It was mostly our family and a couple of other people, so we kind of had our own little organization going on, and the leader, Berg, had already died in 1994, and they had put out this, like, charter. So instead of everybody, like, living according to Berg's crazy dreams, which were honestly really wacky, they had kind of put together this book of rules, which was the charter, which everybody was supposed to live by, and it went down into all the most meticulous details, like how many glasses of wine each person's allowed to drink per week, and people are allowed to have sex with anybody between these ages, but underaged was not allowed. And, there was, like, certain things, they had specifics about everything, and they just got into all the nitty-gritties of how this lifestyle was supposed to look. And, so then things kind of became, if you're following those rules, then you can kinda do whatever you want. And, well, the way that affected me was I was like, "Okay, it's just rules." And by now I was a teenager, and I didn't really care about rules, and there were not a lot of other teenagers in the area that I was in. So I kinda started just doing my own thing and being a little bit
Rebellious?
rebellious. Mildly, though. I still needed to please my parents, and I still needed to, like, I needed to appear to follow the lines, and also I had kind of I was very much a believer at the time. Like, I had a very strong loyalty to Jesus and to the concept of God and to the idea of, evangelizing and being a good Christian and all that kind of stuff. I was very loyal to that. But within that, I still needed to kind of get out
Find
my
yourself.
yayas,
Yeah,
It's
you
like
had to.
I would go drink. I mean, we were in
doing the normal
Ukraine.
teenage stuff?
Yeah, I had to do the normal teenage stuff, and I took pride in it too. Like, being in Ukraine, like, drinking was the norm. Alcoholism was absolutely everywhere. So I started drinking at 12 years old, and I was proud of it, and it was kind of like my way of, and I smoked for a couple of years too, and I remember my mom one time found, like, the smell of cigarettes on my fingers, and she was like, "Honey, what is this?" And, I'm kinda like, "Mom, whatever." My parents themselves were not very strict.
Yeah,
Um,
I could tell that.
yeah. My peers, I had some friends, they didn't live in the same city or even country as I did, but we'd see each other every several months when we'd cross the border to get humanitarian aid or something like that. And their parents were so strict and always angry and always trying to get them to, like, be these perfect teenagers. And anytime I'd hang out with them, they'd be, like, so jealous of my parents, and I'd be like, "Yeah, I couldn't understand why." Because my parents didn't do that. They were kind of like, I think, I don't know, my dad's parents had been very permissive, and my mom's parents had been
Well,
Protestant.
let's face it, this cult was very permissive from early before you were born. I mean, sex with anybody and to go out and have sex and then prostitute, I mean, and
But
drinking
hold
at young.
on. There's a difference between permissive and this is how you're supposed to live, right? They weren't necessarily permissive in as in anybody can do anything. They were like, "Yes, we are this group of sexual freedom and we encourage sexual freedom, but you follow our rules and you do it our way. And if you
Yes.
break our rules or if you don't follow our or believe in our leader, then you are excommunicated." Or and people who left had so much, like, I remember seeing people, families who had once been in the group and had left. They were, like, ostracized, cut out, made, like, people thought of them as, like, less than. Like, "Oh, you
Outcasts.
oh,
Yeah.
you're the ex-member, or you're the what's it called? The word backslider. That was it.
Mm,
You're the backslider. Oh, you have rejected Jesus." It was this very gross kind of seclusion that they went through. So that was a
shunning.
huge motivation for people to try to stay in as long as possible or as much as they could. Because if they left, they had probably, first of all, joining the cult was like you had to forsake all. You had to cut ties with your family. You had to lose all your earthly possessions or give it to the cult. And you had to, like, really make sure that you were committed in every way. So then when you left, you kind of had burned all your bridges and you didn't have anything to go back to. But then you're also saying, "Sorry, guys, I don't believe in your stuff anymore." And they're going to cut you out.
So you said you were the last to leave. So your parents had already left, and I'm guessing your
No,
sibling.
last of my siblings to leave. My parents, they kind of, I don't know if they left, but they kind of just sort of started distancing themselves. So they still live in Eastern Europe and they still do missionary work and they still believe in Jesus and they're very sweet and loving, kind people and I love them to death. I don't know if they have really come to terms with all the evils that this cult really did or
Right.
if they're able to look at it.
Or
And
if they
I
even
think about,
realize it's a cult.
yeah, I kind of think I think they do.
You think they know that?
I think so, or, like, I don't know, there's cognitive dissonance, and there's also, I think when somebody has sacrificed a lot for something,
Oh, yeah.
there's this, like, "I can't allow that to be my thought pattern." Like, it's sort of like there's already a barrier that they can't, like, it would be too painful to cross that barrier and say, like, "Look, this actually was a
Right.
cult. Like, this was
Well,
actually, like, harm."
I'm going to use a term here that we learned from Dr. Ray, Andrew. It's the sunk cost fallacy. They've invested
Mm.
so much into this group that the cost is too
Right.
much to leave now. It's too expensive emotionally, mentally to pull back from that and acknowledge that they basically because they brought their children up in this.
And
They
it's
gave
a
their
way
whole
of life
lives
for
to
them at this
this.
point
Yes,
now.
Yeah.
absolutely.
And to their credit, they do try to reach out in ways to be like, "Oh, I'm sorry for, like, for any trauma that it caused you." And, like, they do try in their own capacity to make amends.
We'll be right back after a quick break.
I
Okay.
haven't fully, like, closed that conversation with them. I haven't had that final conversation with them. I think part of it is I don't wish the pain
Right.
of them realizing everything that I've realized on them.
Right.
I think it would be a very big heartbreak, and,
And
you
you don't
know,
wanna cause that. You don't
I
wanna
don't wanna
yeah,
cause
you
that.
don't wanna open that wound. I can
But I
understand that.
would be happy if they're able to see it and able to come, like, more, because they're very kind people. They're very wonderful, like, beautiful, loving people, and I think in the case of these 2, that I think their motives are pure in the sense of they want to do something for the world and God, and, like, that is their driving force. So,
So if you never get a chance to speak to them about this is we got I want to move up to where you are today. So
right.
like, are you married? Do you have kids of your own? So, but if you never get a chance to speak to your parents, would you be okay with that? I mean, not speak to your parents, but speak to them about what you just spoke about.
Hmm, that's a good question.
Because the only other way it's going to happen is if you open up that door.
That's true, that's true. I've only thought about that lightly. Or not
Okay.
lightly, but,
All
like,
right.
just a little bit
When
because,
the time is right, I think you'll know.
yeah.
Yeah,
The thing is I've talked about it with them on some level, and they have been, like, willing to come as far as they can come.
Okay.
right.
So, I think it will happen in its time. But yeah,
So how old were you then when you finally broke away?
so when I finally left, I was in my 20s. I think I was
Okay.
27 or 28.
Oh,
It was 2009. And I had spent the previous 8 years after I left Ukraine. I've tried to start with some other second generation kids or adults in Costa Rica. We had tried to start our own little, like, mission, doing kind of the thing that we thought we were supposed to do. And it was good for a little while, and then it just bombed. And then I went back to Europe, and I was, like, volunteering in different kind of things, and it just felt like, "What am I doing?" It just felt very pointless and
right,
aimless. So I still didn't really have a goal. I just wanted to feel useful, and I think my whole life I had not been trained to lead myself. I had not been trained to think for myself, as
very
You
in, "This
common.
hadn't
is
been
me, this."
educated.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was very, like, yeah, socially uneducated. Like, the education that we got was so specific. It was in this one little box. You're meant to fit this little role, and that's all. And you're a follower. You're not a
Yes.
leader. So when I left, I was like, okay, I can sing. That's the only thing that I kind of knew to do. And I had made money with that. So I was like, okay, I love singing. I'm going to just go somewhere and sing for a while and see what happens. So I was in Croatia, and I went to one of these beach towns, and I just sang in all the pubs, and I was there for a couple of months. Then I met somebody who, we started kind of dating a little bit, and he was like, "Oh, why don't you come to Switzerland?"
My
And
God, you've been all over the world.
right? So I wanted to go to Switzerland, but I didn't want to, like, move with him right away. So I was still, like, my social circle was still cult members, right?
Yep.
So I looked around for people that I knew, for people who they knew that might be in Switzerland, and I found this person who was starting a company. And I contacted him, and I said, "Oh, do you have a place that I could crash for a little bit? Because I would like to try out Zurich." And I was very I was riding on the breeze. I didn't have a plan. I just was kind of like, let me see how things go. And so he was very like, "Oh, yeah, come on over right away." He was very accommodating. And, anyways, long story short, he kind of roped me into his company. He was starting he was doing, like, commercials. He was filming commercials for different companies. And then as I spoke with him, he was like, "Oh, I'm trying to start a band, and, we're gonna be the best band the world has ever seen." And God, this
I think
I
everybody
can't
that starts a
To
band
say to
starts with
say it
that.
out loud, yes, it's to say it
right?
out loud, she realizes that's what everyone says.
So funny. And so we're gonna make good music because the music in the world is all devilish. And I bought it. But that's the world that I had come from, right? So I was all inspired by his vision. And as I look back, I'm like, of course, because what I didn't have for myself, what I had never built was self-leadership. What I had never even known to have was an internal compass of like, this is what I want to do. So I ended up being like secretary, vocal coach, sound person,
But not
all the
lead singer?
background things. No. And the reason was very specific. He told me I could not be you will never be on my stage. He told me I couldn't be the lead singer because I was too proud. And
Wow.
this was him setting me up. This was like, and I only realized this at the end, like afterwards, when I learned. And I have to say thank God for siblings, thank God for my sister, because she was my lifeline. When 10 years later, I was on the absolute verge of self-harm, fatal
Mm,
self-harm. And she basically very gently and deliberately taught me what narcissism is and what
mm.
I had been experiencing. And that was how I got out, because she kind of helped me wake up to realize this isn't the real world. This isn't life. This is not how you're supposed to live. This is actually abuse that's going on. But going into it, I had no clue. So yeah, it was like textbook. This person needed to feel like he was king of the world. And he had all these grand visions. He had all these like ideas, filmmaking company, band. We're gonna start every bit. He had like, we're gonna write books. We're gonna do everything. Literally, he would talk about like opening hotels, opening libraries,
Grandiose
opening coffee
ideas.
shops,
Yeah.
like all
He
these
was like his
grandiose ideas.
own cult leader.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. He was absolutely his own cult leader. And this whole experience, and the thing is, again, it was like, for me, I was in it for the vision. I was in it because I needed a leader, because I wasn't my own leader. And I needed something to follow. I needed to feel purposeful, right?
You needed a mission.
He gave me a mission, and then he made sure that I never felt qualified for it, that I never would get heard, or my voice would never count. It doesn't matter if it was behind the scenes, if it was in the studio, if it was actually anywhere in front of people. If I ever actually shone, or showed some prowess, or had any little success, to be certain the end of that day, I would get a chewing out, like you see in those movies that the worst military, drill sergeant gives to his people. I would get that at the end of the day, to break me down till I was in tears, till I was just like a puddle of absolute nothingness. And it was literally just his calculation.
Yeah.
That's what needed to happen. And
It's manipulation.
it was straight up manipulation. And he used breaking me down to keep the other people in the band in check, to know that this is what happens. And, somehow, honestly, I have to look at that level of manipulation and be like, I mean, that's some skill in some ways, to
Yeah.
be able to manipulate okay, 5 people, but who are constantly there and constantly in each other's space, but to the point that they don't talk. We couldn't talk behind his back. We didn't talk behind his back about him.
I'm sure there were consequences, and he made
There
that
were
really.
consequences.
Yeah. And you knew
And
that.
and it was just but he played it so hard and so well, constant, and always that back and forth, going between this horrible drill sergeant person who screamed and I am the prophet of God. Or actually, he didn't use the word prophet because that would have been too similar to the cult, and he wanted to make sure that we were different. But he would, when he was screaming at me, he would say, God wants to hit you, and I'm the only thing standing between you and God's fist. And you know what? Sometimes I would run out, and I remember just one time running, and I just wanted to run in front of a truck. We were because we lived in a camper. We lived in a camper, and we moved around Europe a lot.
So is that where you reached out to your sister, or how did she intervene with the
Yeah, well,
self-harm?
actually, it had been at that level for maybe 2 or 3 years before I reached out to my sister, and it got to the point that I actually had a belt, like, around my neck, and I was just ready to, like, let it just, like, not let go. And then they talked me out of it, and then I said, "Look, I need professional help because I can't keep doing this."
Right.
And it had gotten to the point that I couldn't say anything, nothing was like, it was so horrible. And I think the band leader at that point was scared because he knew that if I got professional help,
You would figure him
then
out.
they would figure him out and a professional would call officials. They would call
Right.
authorities and he would be in trouble. So he didn't want that, but he said, "Okay, why didn't you talk to your sister?" Cuz she had been reaching out and been like checking, "Oh, are you okay?" And I had
Yeah.
always been like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I'm fine. We're
Yeah.
so good over here. We're doing God's work."
Right. Well, you had been taught that from the cult.
I
I
had
mean,
been taught
that's
that, and
That's all you knew.
I was
yes.
so gaslit,
You were
right?
playing your part.
I was playing my part, I was doing my best because I thought, and I was told that if I made it better, then it would all be fine. It would all be good. So, it was actually such a beautiful transition. It was very, very hard. It was very emotional. It was very just, like, devastating. But at the same time, I look back at that it was the end of 2020, the last several months of 2020, and I just feel so much gratitude for that time because
But let me ask you something. You feel gratitude for that time because that's when you
uh,
got out, but 2021 is when COVID hit. So
right.
all of a
No,
sudden
it was
you've
2020.
20
It was
the end of
2020,
2020,
yeah.
2020, and so
It was
you
actually March. It was my birthday, right?
Yeah, March
March March
so
2020.
5th March 16th,
you're finally
2020.
out, and all of a sudden, now you gotta do lockdown, and you're no longer
Yes.
free again. So it was all not that COVID was a cult, but you were finally free from this narcissist and from this Children of God cult, and yet you weren't free, and you had to shelter in place. I don't know what part of the world you were in at that point, but so
There was some navigating to do, but I did get to move. So the kind of final crux point was this. Let me see how much time do we have if I'm
well,
gonna
we
We're
get
we have
into
good.
about
this.
10 minutes, and I wanna get to your deconstruction, so
All
yeah.
right, let's do that. Anyway, so when I had flown to Romania where my parents were. I'd stayed with them for a couple of weeks, and then I had actually kind of at that point just being away from the band and with family, I just felt like I was taking a breath of air. It was just like, wow, this is me. This is me talking. Like I hadn't laughed or spoken really like as myself in years. And I hadn't even realized how that had just shrunken down to nothing. And it was just great to be able to laugh again and stuff. Then my sister, who had helped me out, she lived in Miami. And so that's where I went afterwards. And I slept on her couch for a couple of months until I was able to afford my own place. And she actually got me my first bit of therapy because I didn't have money coming out of that cult. Like,
Right.
uh, I had, you know, I
You
negotiated,
you were on your own.
yeah, I negotiated a severance fee of $700. Yay.
Yay.
For 10 years of motherfucking work. Okay. Sorry, am I allowed to swear on here?
Absolutely,
You're good. You're
Yes,
good.
fuck
We're
yeah.
we're we're adult.
especially where you've been.
Um, so yeah, I had negotiated a severance fee of $700 and I had my laptop. And then, I got some little work with my brother-in-law popping corn. And then finally I was able to afford my own little place, so I moved out. My sister had paid for some somatic therapy to kind of help me get out of fight or flight because I had been in a constant state of fight or flight for about 10 years. Like literally it was very ingrained and I was very easily triggered. Like things that just like hit me, I would snap and just shout at people and like my nervous system was absolutely frazzled.
Yeah.
But that like somatic therapy and working with the neurology and breath work and meditation and laughter, laughter therapy, good God, that just made such a difference.
Yeah.
And the therapist put me on a laughing protocol. So she literally said, she's like, "You can't skip this. You're gonna put a timer on and you're gonna laugh at these intervals throughout the day. And when your timer goes off, don't care what you do. Look at jokes, fake laugh, whatever you do, and do it for a whole minute." And sometimes I would put that on and I would start fake laughing and then I would just cry. I would just
Mm.
like bawl my eyes out. But that was how my body needed to release the tension, just to
Yeah.
release all
The
that.
emotion, everything that was built up inside you. Yeah.
Yeah. And like everything was, I think so much of my healing was about that, just like getting it out of the body because that's where it's stored.
Yeah.
If you can set your neurons in a calm and healthy place, set your brain and your mind to be at peace, at ease, just in the present moment, then you're able to start making heads and tails. And it's like your story is always a story,
Right.
right? Your history is always a story. And the way that you tell it, the way that you retell it determines how you feel about it.
Yes.
Right? In the current, and it determines how you can actually retell the story in a victimized way and re-traumatize yourself every time you're doing it. Or you can tell it in a way like I try to like look at it like, okay, I had some shit. I was lucky in some ways and this is life and it sucked. But also there are moments of beauty and it's going to carry on like that.
And you can look at it at the perspective of in 2020 I'm sorry, you were how old at that point?
38.
So really you that's I'm going to sound silly, but you were still very young.
Yeah.
And so
Thank you.
you had a lot of life left in you.
We'll be right back after a quick break.
Don't go anywhere. More Cultimatum is coming up. Did you so here some rapid fire questions. At any point did you find romance and start a family or settle in with because you left the
Well,
band?
I did not start a family. I did find romance a couple of times, but I think I have yet some healing to do. And this
Oh,
is why like I'm very invested in the process of healing from codependency. And
interesting.
so
Okay.
I had a few relationships and they both turned out to be
Bad.
a little bit in different ways. Always better than the last, but always with this somewhat of a narcissistic dynamic.
Of course.
And and I was like, you know, at first, uh, when I realized it with the first one, I was like, come on. Like, I just got away from this. I thought I was doing better, right?
Right.
And then I got into another relationship, and I was so certain this was the opposite. I was so certain that this was not one of those. And it wasn't, just in a different way. And that, like, when that ended, and that was just last year.
Mm.
And it took me a whole year to, like, really mentally, physically let go of even the idea, the illusion of it.
So
But
not
then
you're not just deconstructing from a cult, the Children of God, and then this band leader who is a
Cult.
narcissist cult,
yeah.
and then now you got to deconstruct from these two narcissistic boyfriends.
Right. Well, I don't look at it as in I don't have to deconstruct from each of them. I think each one is sort of like a step on the journey, right? So
Yeah.
I was born into this Children of God, which is like it was like a large, organized worshiping of one man concept of this is how God wants you to be, and God wants you to be a sexy piece of bait so that, people can come to him through you, and you are nothing but be beautiful and like be amazing so that you can be nothing, and like all of this language, right? So that was the upbringing. And then the band was like, I just wanted to make music. I just wanted to have purpose.
Right.
And then really that very intense experience of being a scapegoat in a narcissistic dynamic. And then going away from that and like, okay, now I'm taking care of me. I'm going to find somebody this is the interesting part. I'm going to find somebody who's going to take good care of me so that I can do my dream. And the first relationship, he did take good care of me, but he wanted me to be his emotional buffer, right? So, and in that situation, I was like, I can't do my art. I can't do my anything. So
You
then when
can't
I
do your
left that,
healing. You couldn't do your
I
healing.
couldn't do my own healing because I was so like overwhelmed by his that he didn't even want to heal from. So then the next one was like, he seemed very self-aware, very like he was doing his healing journey. I thought, wow, finally I found someone I can grow with. And it turned out just to not be that. It was like, okay, it was a front that didn't show up. Okay, fine. But going through that last one showed me I had been looking for something outside of myself. I was still doing the codependent thing. I was still looking for someone outside of myself who was going to be what I didn't think I could be, who was going to take care of the parts of my life that I didn't think I could do. And then, so now at this point, it's sort of a point of surrender to life. Surrender to life. Like, okay, I have to be responsible. I didn't get to choose the past. I had to deal with all the steps along the way that brought me to this much consciousness. And there's that much more consciousness to figure out or to explore. So at this point, all I can do is surrender to the moment and not worry about if there'll be somebody. I have no doubt, honestly, that there will be somebody in my life. But until the somebody comes along, I need to be that somebody.
We could talk about that for another hour because
Right?
I have another podcast that it's all about relationships and dating. And I have that exact same philosophy because I'm
Yeah.
single and I'm looking and I'm waiting, but I'm also I'm not worried. I know somebody's going to come along at some point, and
Yeah.
maybe next month, maybe next year, but it will be. So, Cheryl, we have just a few minutes left. So,
All right.
Melody and first, I want to give you a minute to wrap everything up in your head. Is there anything that you didn't say, or maybe you wanted to quickly say, and then we're going to each ask you a question.
All right. Well, I think for me, just to wrap up the whole story of my life, I think it's always difficult to face how bizarre and sometimes grotesque and strange a situation like that is. I had no idea how many more people were going through similar situations or were living in similar situations. Like when I came out, I literally thought like, wow, this is such a unique situation. Nobody knows this story. And then being here, everybody knows it
Welcome to
because
the world
everybody's
of
going through
cults.
it, right?
Yes. Or ex-cults, ex-cult members.
Ex-cults, but also like there are so many culty elements in places that we don't look for
Mhm.
them.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
So it's
Politically,
pretty, yeah.
socially, in the work dynamics.
Yeah. And once you see it, once you understand what those dynamics are, you're like,
Mhm.
why are we still putting up with this? Where is that? What is going
Then you
on?
can't unsee it. Once you see it,
Yes.
you can't unsee
You
it.
cannot unsee it. It's
Especially
true.
when you've lived it. Yeah, and you 2 have
Yeah.
lived it, so you can absolutely spot it. So, okay, I'm going to ask you my first question, and Melody will follow up. So, you went through from birth through the Children of God cult till about in your mid-20s or 27, I think you
Yeah.
said? But you did believe, you said you did go out, you went all over the world to preach the word of God or the word of Jesus? Okay.
Yeah, we had the Bible, we had our Bible classes and it was all King James version
Where
stuff.
are you today in your belief system of that Bible? Do you have a religion? Do you believe in God? And I'm going to stop there and let you explain.
Well, I've always been very attached to faith. And I think because of how much I was moved around and didn't really have any other anchor in my childhood, faith kind of became that anchor. I was very, very angry when I left the band because the band leader had used faith specifically and just like dedication to God in such a malicious way. And I felt like he had stolen my most precious part of me and corrupted it, shat on it, literally. I was very angry, but I also committed to, like, I wrote a song called How to Lose Your Religion Without Losing Your Faith. And really, the point that I came to is faith in itself does not need a religion. Faith in itself doesn't need a Bible, and it doesn't need a, a deity. Faith is something within each of us. And we can use images, stories, histories, whatever we need to use in order to confirm or affirm or give us some external validation for that faith. But really what it is an internal knowing. What I really feel and believe in now is intuition and like an openness to life, an openness to, I think there is definitely more than just like the physical.
I love that. Cheryl, okay, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here. If you don't
Ooh.
want to do it, we'll edit this out. But I was going to ask this, but now I'm going to ask more specifically. I was going to ask you to sing something a little bit for us. Would you
Mhm.
mind singing a little bit of that song for us just so we can hear your voice? Because I would love to hear your voice
Oh, that's really sweet.
before I ask my question.
Okay. You know what? Let's see if I do have my guitar always next to me, so it's here. But let me see if okay. I'll just sing one. It's going to be the second verse and the chorus of the song because I don't want to take too much time. I knew a boy who said he knew what everyone's supposed to do. He said, follow steps 1, 2, and 3, and you might be perfect just like me. I knew a girl who couldn't start. She didn't trust her own heart. I knew a kid who didn't care if God is you or me. We're everywhere. And I've got faith that I'm gonna be alright. I've got this and I'm doing it right. I've got grit, love, I'm smart and I'm wise. I'm part of everything and all I need is mine. And that's how to lose your religion without losing your faith. Drop the act, forget the script, and fuck saving face. No point in praying for your sins to go away. Life hurts, we bleed, we learn, we cry, but we can still say, I've got faith that I'm gonna be alright. I've got this and I'm doing it right. I've got grit, love, I'm smart and I'm wise. I'm part of everything and all I need is mine.
Wow. You
Well,
have a beautiful voice.
Thank
I
you.
was ditto. You have a beautiful. Say it again. A beautiful voice.
Wow.
Thank
Wow.
you.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us and our audience.
Thank
I
you.
know I put
That
you
was
on the
my
spot
pleasure.
because you were not prepared at all for that, but I just
Although
really
she
was.
had her guitar next to her, so
She
I had
did.
honestly
I'm so grateful
before
for
getting
that.
before getting on the show, I had like because I'm pitching to play at different venues in Nashville,
Mm.
so
I'm
I
kidding.
had
Ugh.
just done a little recording, like taking up the 30 minutes before getting on the call. So that's why I had the guitar there.
I'm kidding.
And all I'm going to say is you should have been the lead singer. So before I ask
Well,
my
you know
question,
what? Now I'm my own lead singer. I didn't need to be lead
that's
singer
right.
in
Good
his
for you.
damn
Exactly.
band.
Exactly. Perfect. Perfect. You're leading your own voice. You're in
Yes.
control of your own voice and your own destiny.
Damn
And
Skippy.
so my question for you, Cheryl, is if there's anybody out there who might be listening that's found themselves in a similar situation to yours, whether it's the cult or the dynamics of a cult in something like a group or a band or something, what would be your words of advice to them?
Listen to the part of you that you've shut down. There's always a little part. There's always some part of you that knows. There's always a little part that had that intuition, that saw the red flag. And for whatever reason, there are so many reasons that we ignore them or that we put them aside or that we don't want that to be true. Listen to that. Because that It's so quiet and it's so easily pushed aside, but that really could be your lifesaver.
Excellent, excellent advice. Cheryl, we can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story with all of us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me. It's been a
absolutely.
joy. Thanks for listening to me ramble about.
A very unique, interesting story, and I'm sure
Yeah.
it will help at least one person out there, if not several.
I do hope so.
You did, before we say goodbye, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you have a joke to make us laugh?
You know what? I'm so bad at jokes.
Okay. Okay. I won't put you on the spot. But you are right. Laughter is a very
But
good,
yes,
laughter
you know
is
what?
medicine.
I got in the habit of just making myself laugh,
Good.
even just laughing at myself. Like if I pass myself in the mirror, I'll just flirt with myself and do a little like, "You got this, bitch."
There you go.
Something
Good
like
for
that.
you.
Laugh about life because hey, life fucking is hilarious.
It can be.
Good,
Yes, absolutely.
good perspective, good view.
So
That's a healthy view.
Yes.
Cheryl,
I like it.
thank you very much for joining. Where are you in the world today?
Today I'm in Nashville,
Oh, you're in
Tennessee.
America. Wow.
Oh,
'Cause I
yes.
don't.
Yeah.
Only once in your story were you in the United States. You were in Miami, I think, and everything
Yes.
else was. Well, welcome to the United States.
Thank you.
So, all right, Cheryl, have a good one.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
You as well. Thank you.
And once again, we want to thank Cheryl so much for coming on the show, and I want to thank her for singing for me.
Yeah, that was a surprise to me, and she. I'm joking, but she just happened to have her guitar next to her.
Yeah.
But I am joking. So Cheryl, when you hear this, that I was kidding. And most my son has a guitar, and
Mm.
I don't think he sings, but his guitar is never like
Too far.
without reach from him. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I know singers and people who are musicians are very close to their instruments. So thank you, Cheryl.
Yes.
That was beautiful, and
Yes.
I don't know why that band leader would not let her sing. I mean,
Oh, I think he was jealous. I'm just gonna say it. I think he
yeah,
was jealous. I think he knew she had a beautiful voice, and he didn't want her showing her up. That would be my guess. That's the way narcissists are.
yeah,
So, she
yeah.
definitely has a talent, and I hope somebody else out there hears it and that she wouldn't it be wonderful if she made it big? She deserves it. She deserves it after everything she's been through.
Yeah, maybe we can
So,
ask her to do an intro or outro for our podcast.
ooh, there we go. Oh,
There
that would
we
be
go.
kinda
Yeah,
fun, yes.
yeah. Well, we'll
So
have to talk to her about that.
she's I'm just gonna say there was just something about her that clicked with me, and I just uh, she's
Yeah,
got a
agreed.
beautiful soul. She's just very likable, and it was just a very enjoyable interview, and I really enjoyed having her on the show.
Yeah, agreed. Likewise. And and again, to the audience, we can see her and watch
Yes.
the body language. And this time, she seemed. While she did say this was her first real podcast where she got to tell her story, she seemed very relaxed and very
Yep.
comfortable. And
Yes.
so I personally want to thank Cheryl for everything. She went through some stuff. She traveled the world. I got to
Yeah.
say that much. That's something that I would like to do
Yeah,
someday.
she's probably well versed in a lot of things about other countries that we have no
And
idea about.
you know
So,
what? I should have asked her how many languages because she went to
mm,
France. She grew up in France, ended up in Switzerland and the United States. So she speaks English, and I would imagine
India,
French.
Belgium,
India,
Bangladesh,
Belgium. I'd be curious to how many
Ukraine.
languages. Yeah,
Yeah,
Ukraine, right?
she
She
named
spent
all
time
kinds of
there.
places. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we'll
So,
have to ask her and see if we can find out.
yes, well traveled. And Cheryl, once again, we just want to thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story with us and our audience. As always, thank you for listening to Cultimatum. We truly appreciate your support as we work to expose the truth and highlight the voices of these survivors.
If you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to rate and review us on Apple and Spotify. It helps more people discover the podcast, creating a greater awareness. And don't forget to follow, share, and keep tuning in to our latest episodes.
You can also follow Cultimatum on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and YouTube for extra content and updates.
And be sure to join our Facebook community, Cultimatum Podcast, where we continue the conversations and keep you posted when new episodes drop.
And if you're a cult survivor looking for additional support and connection, we invite you to join the Facebook group Cult Escape and Healing.
You can also find more information about the show, including our full legal disclaimer, on our websites at cultimatumpodcast.com or anonymousandrewpodcaststudios.com.
And if you have a story related to cults or human trafficking that you'd like to share, you can reach us at cultimatumpodcast@gmail.com.
And if you'd like to support the show, you can do that by using the link in the show notes called Buy Us a Cup of Coffee. Your support helps cover production costs and allows us to keep bringing these important stories to light.
And as always, stay safe, stay informed, and remember, you are not alone.